Hello. Shalom. Well, welcome back. If you're tuned in at home, if you're here, welcome back. We have some exciting, at least I think it's exciting. Anytime we get an opportunity to help you guys and give you some instruction that'll help you, it's definitely exciting for me. Just want to explain that this instruction, I won't really call it a teaching, but some instructional advice is going to come to you in two parts. I'm going to start by talking about stop wasting, and then you can fill in the blank, whatever area applies to you. And then the end-of-life planning, we join forces with an attorney of ours, Sheridan Randolph, that's in the back. He's an attorney here locally in Cleveland. He's been helping us out with a lot of situations you guys bring to us. And he's going to do the presentation after me at about 3:30 for end-of-life planning. Now, I want to start off by saying thank you for coming out. I appreciate all of you coming out. This is really near and dear to my heart. Rabbi can tell you, you guys may have heard him mention, he did mention it yesterday, that I'm always on him about getting his stuff together for end of life. And really, me talking about stop wasting leads into, I'm sure what Attorney Randolph will talk about in his end of life planning. But a lot of the situations that we deal with here in the ministry as well as worldwide, because we deal with it around the world. And of course, laws are different, things are different in other countries, and we do our best to be of assistance as we can. So, what I do as a part of what I do as ministry here is I do financial coaching. A lot of people don't know what financial coaching is unless you had a session with me, you have some idea, or you saw the teachings I did back in Sukkot last year. But a financial coach is different from a financial advisor or consultant. What I do is get your mindset together, get your habits together, get your outlook on life and your money together. That way we can come up with a strategy for your specific needs. That's what I do, and I can help coach you through the process. A financial consultant deals with your money after you've made it, and hopefully I can help you get to the point where you actually made something and you're debt-free. And then you can go to this financial consultants or advisors, and they can tell you how and where to put your money to have it grow to meet the specific goals that hopefully we set up before you got to that point. So, that being said, I want to start by asking you a question that probably the people in the room are the ones that usually don't need to hear it, and the people that are not here are usually the ones that fall victim to what we're going to talk about. But the question is, where are you wasting? Where are you wasting? It could be time, it could be money, it could be resources, it could be yourself, wasting brain power, wasting energy. But what I see a lot that I really want to talk about are the things that pop up that since I've been here going on a little over 2 years, come July 1st. And the things that are presented to me a lot of times in counseling, probably the biggest thing that I see is emergencies. Emergencies. So if you ever come to meet with me or you ever heard me teach, the first thing I'm going to look at when you come to me to talk about your emergency is to find out if your emergency is an emergency or if it's an urgency. And those rules for ministry apply to your finances as well, because you guys come for help and we're here to help. The sad reality is a lot of people make the move to come here without proper planning. If we're honest, including myself, we were never really taught how to deal with our money. And if we look at money and realize that the way we deal with money is connected to every aspect in our life, including our walk. If you're not diligent in your finances, how can we expect you to be diligent in your walk? And vice versa, as Rabbi Steve likes to say, vice versa. So I want to talk about, first of all, your emergency fund. A lot of people don't have savings. They don't know how much to save. They don't know what to save. They don't really know. But the emergency fund simply is the old term for a rainy day fund. If you have no savings, when emergency happens, you're subject to not having what you need. After the fourth stimulus came out from the coronavirus stimulus economic package, they did a study and said that the average family, after all this money was given out, the average family did not have $400 saved. I've talked to families that got tens of thousands of dollars, and the study showed that in America, the average family did not have at least $400 saved. This is after all the stimulus. And so that presented a problem which we saw here and across the world, and all the, we had 32 extensions around the world, and people call because life happens. It was unplanned, and the unplanned is what the emergency fund is for, but they didn't have it. Or those that do have it didn't have one big enough. They had the 500 or the 1,000, but most of us know when emergency comes, it doesn't come in specific amounts. So that's why I taught you guys during Sukkot, those of you who listen to it, and it's online on YouTube or our MTI page, that you should at least be saving 1 month worth of expenses. 1 month worth of expenses. That way, if the car breaks down, it's $1,500, depending on what your income is, or something bigger than $1,000 or $500 comes up, you'll have the money to be able to withstand that hit. So we'll talk about that. The next part that I get a lot of calls, that people that have it, so they did a little more planning. So you got people that didn't have any. Then you have people that had 500 to 1,000, so they did a little more planning. Then you have the people that have above 1,000 or 1,500 saved, so they did a little more planning. And then you have people that have 3,000 and 5,000, which on average is the median household income in America right now. The average household with 2 working adults is bringing in anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a month in income. Obviously, if you make more, or your wife makes more, your income could be higher, but we're talking averages, right? So the average household should have an emergency fund at least $3,000 to $5,000. That should cover 1 month of emergencies. Now, that's giving you the ability to live without an income for at least 1 month. That's the idea. That's not including Hobo Max and Netflix and all these things that come, which we'll talk about, to steal that 15, that 17, that 20 bucks a month, that $19.95, all these subscriptions. They come to steal your savings. And while they're stealing your savings, they're also stealing your time, because you don't need to spend that much time watching Hobo Max and Netflix. HBO Max, yeah. My kids call it Hobo Max, and I agree. Because you watch it long enough, you will turn into a hobo. So we'll talk about some ways to save. But the biggest thing that I see happen with people relocating, and we're going to do property tours at some point this week if weather permits, the ministry didn't get to where it got to because they were Rabbi Steve and the team he had at the time, mainly him and Rebbitzin, because they were the original team, started the ministry over 20 years ago. But they didn't get to where they are because they didn't know what they were doing with their money. Yes, Abba blessed, but he blessed them and gave it to them to make wise decisions. And I've been watching since I've been here over 2 years, and been very blessed to be able to see the help that we provide to people all around the world, and they've been providing for years. So huge shout out to Rabbi Steve and Rebbitzin. And Rabbi Tom, he gets in there, and Rebbitzin Joanne, and had a lot of people through the years. I'm very proud to be here and be a part of what he's doing in this body and help you guys to get to where you need to get to with your money, because what mighty and amazing things can we do if we all get to the point where we're all first, second, and third tithing, if we're all giving, if we all have the ability that if Abba says move, you can move without worrying about your finances. That's a great place to be in. I tell people all the time, you want to get to a place financially where you make decisions because you want to, that you're not making decisions because you have to, because that means somewhere along the line your planning went awry, you probably didn't get help or counsel, and you didn't wind up where you want it to be. Since last Sukkot, I think I've got, at least I'm asking people to write it down, I think I got about $13 people that have contacted me to either say that they have a fully funded emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of living expenses, or several phone calls, emails, and text messages and phone calls that people have become debt-free. And that is amazing in itself. No bills other than your monthly bills, but houses are paid off, student loans are paid off, and they're debt-free. So that's amazing. And it can be done. Everybody can do it. And you can do it with the money you already have. The secret of what I just said is the money you already have. Some of us don't have enough money. So what do? If you've been around me long enough, you know I say get 12 jobs. If you got one job and you're not making enough to be able to accomplish your dreams, you're not making enough. So I'm going to talk about the emergency fund, how to refund your emergency fund. We're going to talk about areas where you could be saving money that you're probably not realizing that you're wasting. And then ultimately, this all goes toward what the end goal is. How do we get to end-of-life planning and get prepared going through this process when we're healthy, that when we get to the end of life, we're not sitting there looking for a handout or expecting somebody to do something with all the debt that you accrued while you were living, and now that you're not here anymore, somebody has to pay for that. It doesn't go because you went. And so we deal a lot with end-of-life planning. That's why we have Attorney Sheridan here. And I coach a lot of people through it, but I don't have the time to walk everybody through it, so we got the professional Attorney Sheridan to help you guys go through it. We can give you guys guidance, as we have from so many people, but it's really sad when you get to the end of your life or your loved ones and they have not made the necessary preparation, and many of us haven't, and it is sad. I've seen many families come through that, they have a standard of living while they're alive, and then when they pass away, unfortunately, a lot of those things get taken away because of not having the proper planning. I've also seen many families move here without a plan, or they have an idea without a plan, and they wind up losing or using the blessing that Abba gave them to sell the house or whatever and get, crazy amounts of money over the asking price because of the economy, only to get here and lose their dream because they didn't get help, they didn't get counsel, they didn't get what they needed until it was too late. And so we don't want to see any of you like that. So we want to talk about ways that you can save, you should be saving, and ways to stop wasting so you can get to your end of life planning and leave a legacy behind and not debt. Amen? Amen. All right. Let me move this out of the way. So we talked about an emergency fund and what is an emergency fund. I'm going to try not to move as much camera people because I can't see anyway. I'm blinded. So we're talking about emergency fund. What is your emergency fund? So the first way for you to find out what your emergency fund is, you first need to do what? You can call it out. Somebody say it. You need a budget. What do you need before you do a budget? You need money. What is it? Spending sheet. Track your income. You can't do a budget unless you know what's coming in. And a budget is going to tell you what's coming in and show you what's going out. If you're not tracking your spending for at least 30 days, you're not going to have a good budget. I think it's funny, I have people come to me and they ask for help with their budget and they bring all their books and everything. Those people are really prepared. They put in a lot of time and work, and they slide it to me across the table. And as soon as I touch it, I slide it back to them across the table. Because I don't need to really see it unless there's a problem. And I can tell you 90% of the time, the people that sit down and push their book across the table, they have it figured out. After I talk to them first, I then look in their book if I need to, and I guarantee you they have a budget for the budget, for the budget, for the budget, which is amazing. It's awesome. But the people that come in my office oftentimes crying because they think they can't make ends meet or they don't know how they're going to make ends meet, I ask them the first question, where's your budget? 90% of those, if not more, don't have a budget. That's why you're crying. You're crying because you don't know, not because you don't have. You just don't know. And the reason you don't know the numbers is because you haven't taken the time to sit down and write them out. So the budget comes in after you track your spending. Obviously, if you don't make any money, you need to get to 12 jobs before you can track spending because you have nothing to spend. All right, so step one, you need to track your spending. On the MTOR website, Rabbi did a phenomenal teaching talking about a money mindset in his money mastery teachings. He talks to you about having the proper mindset to start tracking your spending and creating a budget. He did a great job. He did it in two teachings he did. So then last Sukkot, I came and gave you guys 3 teachings following up to his 2 teachings, really about the same kinds of things, saving, preparing for what you need to do with your money. So what we find out is every dollar that comes into your bank account, into your paycheck, every dollar you get should have an assignment. And many of you mess up, not because it doesn't have an assignment, it's because you're not disciplined to keep the assignment that you gave it. Budgets are great if you follow them. They're not decorations for you to keep on your refrigerator as you walk past and think you've accomplished something. You have, compared to 84% of America, you have accomplished something great. You actually have a budget. But you have to follow your budget. If you don't follow your budget, it's no good. What is your budget teaching you to do? It's teaching you to be disciplined with your money. What is Scripture meant to do? Teach you to discipline so you can get to the kingdom. Is that correct? So we have an instruction manual. So he gave you the knowledge and the understanding to write it down. We talked about that to code. Write the vision, make it plain, so you can walk and not faint. Though the vision tarry, you'll get there, but you got to keep doing it. All right? I work with people, we start with a budget, they get debt-free, or they get their 3 months living expenses of 6 months, or maybe some of them have even gotten a year of expenses saved. And they get to the end and say, well, what do I do now? Or they need it, use it, and like, what do I do now? So you start over. And we might have to tweak a few things. You might need another 12 jobs. Or you might need to cut some things out. And we're going to talk about a few of those things in just a second. But you need to track your spending. You need to have a budget, a written budget, not in your head, not written on your calendar. Calendars are good, but that's not your budget. You need to see every penny coming in and every penny going out, and you need to give it a job. You need to give it a job. Why do we need to give it a job? Because if you don't give your money a job, you don't give it an assignment, it's going to go bye-byes. It's going to go bye-bye. It's going to wave at you while it's going by. Bye. You know, all those things that people think are emergencies are not emergencies. You just didn't plan for it because it wasn't written in your budget. I have people sit down with me and forget that they don't have a wash and dryer. They have to wash their laundry, and they forget that's $40 a month. They forget they had car insurance. They forget that they have kids that are going to grow out of their clothes, and you're going to need that emergency pair of pants. If you got a Judah like me, I might say we got to get Judah some more pants. She texted that while we were in the first session this morning. Life happens. The question is, are you prepared? We're trying to get you prepared for when life happens. All right? I'm going to give you guys a saving sheet after. I didn't want to give it to you now because then you'd be looking at it when I talk about it. I'm going to give you a savings form to see. Hopefully, it'll cover everything that you haven't thought about that you need to be saving for. Because even in your savings, you have to give your money an assignment. A lot of people have savings, but they're not specified. A lot of people don't know what's an emergency or what's not an emergency. Usually, for most people, emergencies are anything I didn't think about putting in my budget, so I didn't save for it. So I just got this lump of cash that if it happens, I'll be prepared. That's better than nothing. But you really want to give your savings an assignment. So you need to figure out, by tracking your spending and doing a budget, what your monthly expenses are. So you'll have a target, something that you're working towards. You'll have a why. You'll have a vision. You have a number. You need a number. Sadly enough, most people see that number, but they don't make enough to cover that number. Can't tell you how many families I sit down with, and they are afraid because they have too much. They're spending more than they make, on a monthly basis. And then I got all of my credit card lovers, and I'm not a hater of credit cards. They're necessary in certain circumstances. I don't promote them, but a lot of families I see are a month behind because they put things on the credit card that they couldn't pay for. So they're basically revolving their credit cards to meet monthly expenses. Dangerous place to be in. Or they get their credit cards paid off and they save them because they think the credit card is their rainy day fund. Dangerous place to be in. Because you don't want to be that person that maxed out that credit card and then lose your job. Can't pay it. And then they give you this wonderful thing from the credit card company is the credit card insurance. That if you can't pay your bill, then they'll cover it, and that's an extra couple bucks a month, like Hobo Max. But in the fine print, they don't tell you that you can only not work according, for certain things that probably won't happen to most of us. So so you got to get your savings together. Get your budget together, tracking your spending. Then sit down, create a budget. Whoever wants to, if it's a husband or wife, because usually one doesn't want to, the other one does want to, one wants to spend, and usually the other one wants to save. So you guys got to figure that out. You might have to come for marriage counseling if you can't. The number one reason marriages break up, what do you think it is? Money. Finances is your money. Your money messed up. I know a lot of us want to think, it's because of the walk. That has its own problems, its own advantages, its own challenges in the walk, absolutely. But the number one around the world, doesn't matter what walk you're in, is money. Destroys more marriages. Out of the 55% of the world that deal with divorce, what percentage do you think of those 55% is financially related? Say it. 98%. So only 2% are getting divorced for something outside of money. 98% of the 55% are getting divorced because of money issues, which money issues lead to a whole lot of other issues for the 2%. Money issues lead to infidelity in some marriages. Money issues. He or she, somebody didn't make enough. We know the man should be out there with 12 jobs. Sometimes that's not the case. The woman has to go out and is agreed upon or whatever. She can get more. And I saw that and I was like, wow, okay. So we got some work to do. So, track your spending. Get your budget. After you get your budget, you'll begin to look at your budget and see ways that you can save. Hopefully, when you do your budget, you'll see that you're making more money than is going out of your household. And then you might need to decide, depending on what these things, if you can't cut anything out, you might decide that you need that part-time job. Or you need 2 part-time jobs. Or you need a full-time job, 2 part-time jobs, and do DoorDash when you can't do those. Because you got to decide how much of the stuff that you're wasting you really want. The things you're wasting money on, do you really want them or not? You got to ask yourself that question. I bet you many of us can open our garage and see a whole bunch of stuff in there we don't want. It's usually our wives' stuff, not ours, but I'm teasing. I'm sure there's something in your garage that you don't want. There's somebody else that has a bigger garage probably take from you. Be glad to buy it from you. So you want to track your spending, figure out what your monthly expenses are. And the goal is trying to get your first goal, your first target is trying to get 1 month of living expenses, that $3,000 to $5,000. You need to have that. And that's going to cover any emergencies while you're building your 3 to 6 months of living expenses. You have to decide what that is. I tell people all the time when they say that they need benevolence for something and I look at their budget, because we do make you do that. I'm going to be transparent with you. Not about me, but I'm just saying I'm going to be transparent, so you need to be transparent if you're asking for help, because I'm going to take you through. It's not challenging. You just got to own some things. You coming and you need help? Okay, let's look at your numbers. And I don't want to see, I see it, But I'm going to tell you what I do when I see it. So I'll see cigarettes and Hobo Max, and I'll see this, and I see that. I'll see cable. I see mobile bills. I see internet. I see all these things that are not needed. They're wanted. They're not needed. And this one family I was working with, I looked through, and in just subscriptions alone, they were spending about $85 a month. It's like you cut all this out, you can reach your goal. $85 a month is a game changer for a lot of families. Because if you do that 7 times, you'll have your $1,000. You do it 12 times, you'd be close $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. But we don't give the money an assignment, so a lot of times we waste it. So we want to make sure we're planning properly. So the savings, it's called the breakdown, the savings sheet I'm going to give you, is going to give you some goals, some targets to hit. So the first one is your emergency fund, and it says $1,000 here because I got my certification through Dave Ramsey, and his thing is $1,000. I always up it to 1 month of living expenses. Then the next goal target you want to hit is number 2 is 3 to 6 months of savings. Retirement fund you want to think about, college fund, real estate taxes. A lot of times they own the house but still have to pay taxes for our seniors. So that gets difficult in the end of life planning. Sometimes that you can lose your house because you didn't pay your taxes. Homeowners insurance, that's another one that gets missed all the time. Repairs and maintenance fee, especially if it's left to the wife, the house is left to the wife, and they can't maintain that house. Furniture replacement. People don't think about that when they're saving. Disability insurance, health insurance, doctors, dentists, optometrists, life insurance, school tuition and supplies, gifts, vacations, computer replacement, tires, baby, and so many other things that you could be saving for. So that gives you some ideas of things that you could be saving for that you might have forgotten, or things you need to work on and prepare to be saving towards these things for any unfortunate event. So your financial plan or your budget has a lot of moving parts. It's not as simple as all the bills you think you have, because there are probably some things, some areas in your life you're wasting money that you can plug some holes. And when you sit down with me, or you sit down with Rabbi, or you sit down with us, we'll look for all the places where you're bleeding. We'll do a quick triage. Let's see where you're bleeding. Let's see where we can plug the hole. We can fix the bigger stuff later. Some of those things take time, but we want to plug the hole, fix the problem as soon as possible, right? Because we want to help you. So the first thing we do is we look at your budget. I usually take people and tell them, get a gallon-sized Ziploc bag, and I need you to take every receipt. First of all, you got to put up your credit and your debit card. Put it up in the closet, put it in the safe somewhere. Take it off of your person. Put it somewhere. There's no emotional attachment when you're using a card, especially credit card. There's no emotional attachment because you think, hey, I got unlimited. I can just swipe until that bill due. Then you're sitting there crying because that bill popped up. So use cash. If at all possible, use cash. And this is what I teach families to do. Get you a gallon-sized Ziploc bag, purchase everything in cash. If you go back 3 to 6 months, is one technique that Rabbi uses, and look at your bank statement because you use debit or credit cards. You can track it a lot faster because you can go back. When you use cash, you can only go forward. All right, so there's an advantage if you did those things and you had it. I'm going to tell you stop that, put those cards up, and I want you to use cash. I want you to go to the bank, take out that $300 that you budgeted for, and put it in your little grocery envelope, and I want you to only use that $300. Because the problem is we're not disciplined to only use what we decided to use. Because when it's on a card, you can go over $3 here, $4 here, $1.50 here. I had one young lady said that she spends a couple $100 unknowingly at a vending machine getting snacks. Until she tracked her spending, she didn't know she did it. Me and my wife did this back in 2011, and we tracked our spending for 30 days, and we found $686, something like that, that we couldn't account for before we start tracking our spending. And when we found out what it was, we were shockingly surprised. It was eating out, entertainment, movies, those things. So it's not bad because we had it to spend. What was bad is it wasn't planned to be spent, and that money could have went somewhere else if we had a plan, but we didn't have a plan. So you need that written plan. These are all the major components that you should be looking at. So your cash flow plan, your budget. You need to be looking at your will or estate plan. If you don't have one and you're making an income and you got something, you should at the very least have a will. And I'm not going to go too far into it because Mr. Sheridan will, Attorney Sheridan will. But you need that. You need a debt reduction plan for some of you, tax reduction plan, emergency funds, retirement funding, college funding, charitable giving. Some of you need a plan to tithe. That actually comes up. And if it doesn't come up, I don't bring it up. If you come to me with your budget and tithing is not a part of your budget, I don't bring it up. It's between you and him. But if it's on there, I'm going to make sure that we tackle that first. How do we get to you? How do we get you to a place in your finances where you're putting him first? Because without a budget, without tracking your spending, you think all the money you bring in is yours, and it's not. All of it is his. He allows you to keep 90% of it, but it all belongs to him. Well, let's say 80% when you got the third tithe year. But it's all his. And what he's looking at in your life is, are you going to be a good steward over what he's provided you? And it's funny because we look at that in every area of our life. When it comes to our finances, we get a little tight. Our pockets get a little squeaky for some of us because we don't think we have enough. And the reason you don't think you have enough, one, because you don't know if you have enough because it's not written down. Two, you don't trust the process, which in reality is really you not trusting yourself. You're not disciplined to trust yourself when it comes to your finances. I told this one lady, I said, if you could save $2 a month, anything you can save, it was $2 a month in this case. So if you can save $2 a month, that's $2 you didn't have the month before. And she said it's so difficult to save $2 because it's so little. When I go through the McDonald's drive-thru, I just get a meal. I said, well, there's no meal at McDonald's for $2. No, I get the $7, $8 meal, and I put the rest to it from somewhere else. But I feel like $2 is not enough to save. I said, I don't care if you save a quarter. Save something. Save something. You have nothing. But tithing. If you're not tithing, and it's not written down on your budget, because I get to stand up here with the microphone, I'm going to tell you that's probably 100% of your problem. You're not disciplined. That's really what it boils down to, ultimately. You're just not disciplined. You're not disciplined to do what he said do. You can do it and believe it for everything else spiritual, so you think, but you think money is not attached to that? A good steward. What does a steward mean? Is a representative, steward specifically is a representative of money. Money, specifically. Look it up. I ain't gonna make it up for you. A good steward. He wants you to be a good steward. Means I gave you money. I want to entrust this money to you with your skill and ability. The money that I gave you, you can do great things if you're disciplined enough. But we don't want to be disciplined enough because we think it's ours. It's not yours. It's his. If we do all three tithes, he gives you 70% of what comes into your hands. He gives you 70% of it. Well, 80% when it's not your third tithe year. So I'm teaching people to do 50-50. Make your budget, live off 50%. And I'm going to be teaching the kids in a couple days. And I'm going to get your kids ready to start living before they get that first paycheck. And some of them are already starting to get it. I'm going to get them in the mindset that only use 50%. Because I got a lot of families I'm trying to get them out of debt. They're on a 50-50 plan. You only spend 50% of what comes in. They say, well, I can't live off 50%. Then you need to get that second, third, fourth job, whatever you need to get to, because we got goals to get. And you don't make enough with one job to get to the goals that you're trying to reach. Some of you got houses you can't afford, furniture that you're renting, cars that you're leasing, jobs that you hate. And we have to be disciplined in order to get to where we need to get to. I'm kind of hard sometimes when it comes to finances because we don't have, because we refuse to discipline ourselves. The information is there. I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't already know. What I'm doing is trying to tell you that you can do it if you discipline yourself. If you have a clear vision of what it is that you're trying to accomplish, you can make it. You can do it. I have a young lady that came to me during the feast. She's one of those ones sat down with her budget and her book. And like I said, she had a budget for the budget for the budget for the budget. Tracking, spending, she didn't made up categories I ain't never heard of. I was so proud of her. One of our young people. She ain't got no children. She do got a boyfriend, but I talked to him before. But she's out there working 3 and 4 jobs to reach her goal. So much so that she has the ability to lend. Be the lender, not the borrower. You remember those scripture verses? So track your spending. Save like never before. And I'm going to go over about a few ways that I tell people to do, some things that they run into. One major one that I see all the time is their insurance policy. Car insurance, I'm talking about. If you heard me last code, I tell you at least once a year, you should be calling State Farm, whoever it is that you have for a carrier, and you need to be asking them as a way you can reduce your rate. Because your insurance premium is based on your credit score, which if you all partook like I did many years ago, we all stuck in the credit system. It's not necessarily bad, especially when you're trying to buy a house, but we got stuck in that system. But call them. Maybe you can lower your your auto insurance a few bucks. One thing I see people do, because they'll bring me their car insurance, ask me to look over their declaration page. One thing I've been seeing in our ministry is people that get into accidents and they don't have uninsured motorist coverage. If you live in Tennessee, and this is for all you want to move here as well, if you live in Tennessee, you need to have uninsured motorist coverage on your insurance. Uninsured motorist coverage. Especially if you're moving here, you need it. These people cannot drive. Okay. Look, Deidre say yes. That's the first thing I asked her when she called. Do you have it? So uninsured motorist coverage helps you not have to wait for the insurance company to sue the other party if they were at fault for you to get some kind of rental car claim, money, whatever you need. It speeds the case. It speeds it up. So it's not this arbitration going back and forth. And when I got my insurance policy, I was looking it over because it was already like $100 cheaper per month coming from Connecticut. I looked it over, and I saw this $34.01 a month for uninsured motors. I'm like, I'm not paying that. Why am I paying that? So I called the people up so I can get my insurance policy changed, and she said, Mr. Jackson, you might want to keep that. I said, why? I didn't have it. $34 a month? It's like, you're in Tennessee. I understand 2 years later why. She said, well, did you know that Tennessee is the 4th largest state in America with uninsured motorists? I said, what? Ain't got no insurance here. Be careful, all right? Make sure you have that on your policy if you're moving here. Just some things you need to know. Make sure you have it. Another thing you need to know, if you move here and you have any kind of financial challenges, you didn't plan for it, maybe something fell through, understand, reach out to the ministry so we can help guide you. I would prefer you to call us before you move, because many people that have moved, I've walked them through the process of moving so they don't have those hiccups. Can't tell you how many people moved down here, got to the table to close on a house, and the deal fell through. Probably the number one need when you're moving is to make sure you got housing secure before you move. It could be a rental. I rented, still renting. Make sure you get housing secure before you move. That is a huge thing for everybody. So I'm going to go through some ways that you can save that you might not have thought of. So we talked about Hobo Max and Netflix. Many of us have unused subscriptions we're not using. And you may have deleted the app from your phone, but if you're not disciplined enough or you're trying to start this whole thing, look at your credit card statements or your bank statements and look for these miscellaneous subscriptional charges. Some of them can be $199, $399. Well, that's coming out of that's a bleeding, a small bleed for some of us, but that could be the difference between a bounce check or not. I've seen people get those overdraft fees for 34 cents. I think that's the smallest one I've ever seen. 34 cents. So they showed me I got a $37 charge for 34 cents. I said, okay, did you call the bank? I said, what for? I said, do you bounce checks all the time? I was like, no. I said, well, call the bank and ask them to give it back to you. Apologize, be very sorry, whatever, and ask them to refund that fee. You didn't mean to make that mistake. It bounced for 34 cents. You don't have $37 to pay for 34 cents. It was a mistake. There's a scripture in Proverbs. I know the kids are learning Proverbs. Scripture in Proverbs said, if you owe a debt, you need to fight like a bird caught in a fowler's trap. You need to go and beg that person that you owe debt to. You need to beg them to release you of that debt. That's scripture. So somewhere along the line, if you read through Proverbs, the Creator don't like you to have debt. He don't want you to have debt. And I know some debt is necessary. I know all that. So don't beat me up, all you mortgage people out there. I know it's necessary. But there's also a way that if we had the proper training, the proper guidance, there's also ways that I know a lot of people have bought houses all cash. There's a way. I also know many people, like I said, who've paid off their houses and are debt-free. So check for any leaking money you might find in any unused subscriptions. And ask yourself, are you really using them? I got Audible because we were doing something, we needed Audible, and I still got 3 credits on it. So that means 3 months I've been paying, I ain't listened to the book. If I put that book in on YouTube, I probably can find that book on YouTube. Rabbi was referring somebody to something from Tony Robbins that he purchased for like $250 years ago, and we found the whole series on YouTube for free. So look for those unused subscriptions. Take the notch up when you got your budget and ask yourself, do I really need this? Because some of the things on your budget you can take a vacation from. What do I mean? I know it's hard to not have Wi-Fi. But if you work like me, you're never home most of the time anyway. Use the Wi-Fi at work. Ask the boss. I've asked Rabbi before, hey, can I stay after my time and work on some stuff for me? Not because I didn't have Wi-Fi, it was easier to just ask if I could do it here. And he let me. But most of us have Wi-Fi at work or go somewhere, but maybe you need a Wi-Fi vacation. All of us, I'm sure, could use, if you want all those social medias, can use a social media vacation. I can save you some brain time by having you not open those things while you're at work because it sucks your brain energy away, and then you go on rabbit trails and squirrel hops because something popped up on social media. Or the TikTok because everything is funny for 2 seconds. So take it up a notch. Take a vacation from some things that are costing you money that you don't need on a monthly basis. And I'm telling you, get rid of your cable and all those things because they usually bundle together. But maybe you don't need the phone, or maybe you don't need the internet, or maybe you don't need part of it for a month and say, look, can I take this off my bill for a month or 3 months and save yourself a couple $100? So take it up a notch. Ask yourself, do I really need it? Block notifications and emails from shops, takeaway services, and more. So if you're one of them people that like to shop, if you're the one that's shopping and not saving, you need to turn all those alerts off on your phone. This one had a sale, and this one had a sale, and this one had a sale, and this one had a sale. Time they finish having all these sales, you broke. I know somebody got paid on the 1st of this month, and on the 7th, they were broke. They went shopping. Turn off those notifications so you don't see when whatever. I don't even know the store because I don't like to shop. But it's probably just as worse if you go on Amazon, because you can find something on Amazon that's usually sometimes cheap in the store, but you don't get the service that you get with Amazon when they deliver to your door. So, but block notifications and emails from shops and takeaway services so you're not tempted, all right? So you can stay disciplined. The biggest area that people don't realize after they're miscellaneous, because we just throw everything in the miscellaneous. It's not miscellaneous. You're just not disciplined. And we call it miscellaneous. But the biggest area we talked about, and I had some feedback, positive and negative, from different folk that talk about they couldn't eat off of what I said that my family was, our target was. But the next biggest area other than miscellaneous is our food budget. Do you know, I know families that their food budget is bigger than their mortgage or rent. I'm not saying it's necessary or not. I'm just saying that's an area that you need to look at, because a lot of people are spending a lot of money on groceries for unnecessary things on their grocery list. They got all organic everything. I'm not knocking organic. We're only knocking it when you buy a fridge full and got to throw half of it away because you didn't eat it fast enough. So we're wasting on our grocery bill. We're wasting on our gas because we got to go to the grocery store 15 times a week because we didn't have our grocery bill planned out. It's another way we say overspend with our grocery bill because it's not written out. You have no plan. And that goes for every area in your life. If you think you have no plan for your budget because it's not written down, what do you think will happen when you go to the grocery store and you don't have a list? I need 1 peanut butter, not 2 because it was 2 for $4. I need 1 bunch of celery or whatever it is, not 2 because it's 2 for $5. I only need 1. The other one gonna go rotten, I'm gonna throw it away. I just waste it. And I'm probably wasting time staying there thinking about which one I should get, if it's the 2 for $5 or the 175 for the 1 bunch. But we just need to stop wasting. Does that make sense? You want to save money, leave your credit and debit card at home. I talked about that earlier. We overspend because we take these things and we're not disciplined enough to use cash. Cash will humble you. Using cash will humble you, because when you don't have enough and you got to walk that thing back, or you just get so embarrassed because you're so used to just swiping on the card and you know that you wait 30 days to pay it and you got to walk that thing back, or you get some smart cashier that decides, no, you can go ahead and take that back. Now, that ain't never happened to me, but I definitely thought about it a lot of times. It will cause you to think a little more when you know you got $30 in your hand for this meal, and your credit card got $300 or $3,000 on whatever your limit is, but you got $30 for this meal. If you leave the cards home, you don't have that debate. You got $30 cash. If you go over $30, you got to put it back. On our Facebook group, we did a thing for a few months, where we posted meals that you can make at a certain amount for a certain amount of people. And I think the number one meal somebody came up with, it was $10, and they fed, I think it was like 10 people with $10. Dinner. They fed them dinner. Everybody ate, and I think the person got a bag of rice, a bag of frozen vegetables, and a big piece of meat. They made a meal for 10 people. But if we go get jasmine, organic, lavender, all these special kinds of things, special kind of rice that boils itself, it bakes itself, you just look at it and dinner's ready. You get all these things because they got everything these days. And the only reason we want those things is we need more time to look at Netflix and Hobo Max. We don't want to miss the next episode. So we just going to pop it in the microwave. I ain't had a microwave yet. We're going to pop it in the microwave. Or we're going to burn it in the oven. Usually we burn it in the oven by accident. Everything's by accident. Another humbling thing that you can do if you want to get more discipline in your finances, stop wasting, is to work out the amount of money by what you get paid on an hourly basis. And if your salary, you figure out how much you get on an hourly basis. If you don't know, shame on you. You should know how much you make. So if I make $30 an hour and one of my meals is $30, my budget for a particular meal is $30, that'll be very humbling to you if you think about it while you're in the grocery store. Especially if you work a hard job. If you got a hard job and you think you got $30 an hour. $30 is really good an hour to get today's age, day and time. But you imagine you worked an hour for $30, and that's only going to last you for one meal. So do the comparison when you're shopping. See what you think your money is really worth or what you think you're worth and your time is worth, and you start saving some money there. Another thing you can save, stop wasting time, is focusing on your savings, not necessarily your debt. And I know you listen to a lot of people talk about money, they're going to tell you, go after debt, go after debt, go after debt. And you know, if you ever work with me, I tell you, before you go after the non-interest accruing debt, you want to save. Yes, I know it's going to take you another 3 months to save to get 1 month of living expenses, but it's worth that 1 month that you're going to gain if you lose your job than it is you paying off that debt. That's not accruing interest. If it's accruing interest, we can work on that. But non-accruing debt, all right? So focus on your savings, not your debt. Oh, I got plenty of time. Number 8, me and my wife practiced this back in 2011. Sleep on it. Stop impulsively buying anything. You and your husband, you and your wife, you get to an agreed amount. Anything over $50, we're going to talk about. Whatever your budget is. You got a budget, it better be on the budget. Don't have no conversation, you don't have no budget. You sit down with the spender. It's usually the saver that's sitting down with the spender and saying, look, now we got $50. Now you need to make this work with $50. If you can't make it work with $50, we're not buying this TV. No. From the thrift store, no, whatever it is. You got $50. If it's over $50, we need to have a meeting, conversation to decide. And preliminary to that conversation, before we have that conversation, you need to wait 24 hours. You need to sleep on it. Sleep on it. Stop buying stuff because you thought you needed it. You thought you needed it in the moment when you saw it, and you didn't go in the store to get it in the first place. You just saw it and it was on sale. And I understand that. Been there, done that. Baby girl, you can't. This thing is on sale. It was $500 last week. This week is only $250. We should get it right now. Nope. My wife know me. And she doesn't do it anyway. She don't even like to spend like that. So I said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to leave it in the store. Tomorrow when you wake up, if you feel the same way today, tomorrow that you feel today, then we'll have a conversation if you really want it or not. Usually when you leave the store, the impulsiveness of the moment is gone anyway. They don't want it. They thought about it. Is it a need or a want? We waste time, energy, brain power, money, focus, everything else by not being disciplined. So sleep on it. Give yourself 24 hours. Give yourself a set amount that if it's over this amount, we need to wait 24 hours before we make a buying decision. And yes, I've had couples that had to put them on $50 because that's what they needed. People can do some wild things with $100. Mess their budget all up, especially if they go get a payment on something. You said $100, so I only put $100 down. Yeah, but the thing is $100 a month. Well, somebody come to me. I just took my tax return. I just bought a car. Oh, that's wonderful. Paid off? You went and paid, you put the $2,000, $3,000 down, you got a nice, decent used car? No, I put it down and got a $2,000 whatever. You know the tax return only come once a year, right? And you work at Burger King. You know that, right? You know you got to put full coverage on it because you got a lien on it, right? And you under 25. And so car insurance is high. 12 jobs. I just look at it in 12 jobs. Look, 12 jobs. Okay, 12 jobs. This one for all you ladies, or all the spenders, because I know some men spend more than women. I know a bunch of them. Stop spending. Just stop spending. Just take your money, put it on the dresser, put your cards on the dresser, just stop spending. Find somebody that got some self-control and ask them to spend for you till you learn your lesson. Stop spending money. You just mess up, just spending just for no reason. Not even in your budget. You just spend it. I had somebody tell me it was therapy for them, or get a dog. I don't know what to tell you. You get to walk a dog, walk somebody else's dog. Don't even buy one because you ain't got no money. Don't buy nobody else. Walk somebody else's dog. Go to the dog park and ask people, do you need me to walk your dog? Because I need therapy. And the therapist I had is broke. Okay, so I had people come to me for coaching, and I feel so bad for them. I just look at them, and I don't even charge them. I don't even charge them. Because Rabbi said if it's something they need, give it to them for free. Something they want, you ain't charging them. And some people I just charge because they just need to be, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. There's always the people that got 12 budgets that are good that come for the advice. And a lot of times they just come to check in. Is this a good decision that I'm going to make? I thought about it. They got 12 plans, like I said, to figure it out, and that's good. But it's usually the ones that are not in this room are the ones that don't get the help, as Rabbi talks about counseling in every area of your life, that struggle and they fail. And then we will hear it after the fact. And by that time, most of the time, sadly enough, it's too late. We can start from where we are and move forward. This is a good one. For every new thing you buy, try to get rid of something old. Or get rid of the old thing. If you're buying a new thing, get rid of the old thing. But I don't know why you're getting rid of the old thing if the old thing is still working. Riddle me that. Unless it's your spouse. They ain't working. No, I'm kidding. Don't get rid of your spouse. This is for all you people who don't like budgets. Make a list and stick to it. It's discipline. Make a list and stick to it. If you make a list that you're going to do it, do it. Don't get no extra peas. You only put one package of peas on there. Don't talk about you had and you need extra peas for your shepherd's pie. You're getting one pack of peas because that's what you planned in your meal, one pack of peas. That's $1.50. And get Bird's Eye. Don't get name brand. Is Bird's Eye name brand? Get the Walmart brand. That's 98 cents. I know how much it is, 98 cents. Don't get the $1.50 Bird's Eye. Get the 98 cent Walmart brand. The same package. And no, don't get two for $3. Don't fall for it. That's how they get you. Make a list and stick to it. I ain't going to go to shopping online. Y'all need to leave the line alone. Look, I grew up in the thrift store. Anybody grew up in the thrift store? My parents grew up. I didn't grow up in the thrift store. My parents grew up and dressed me out of the thrift store. And you know what? With all these families in our congregation, we need to have our own free cycle program. Just let your children's clothes go to somebody else's children's clothes. We can save a whole lot of money. Isn't that good to ask somebody, do you have this or do you have that? I ain't saying begging, you just simply ask them. There's one wonderful thing a bunch of people do in the congregation. We all share food for Old Neg. And one day I heard my wife talking, I think it was Miss Melissa or Mercy, about what they was going to bring. And I just overheard the conversation. What you mean? What y'all talking about? So, we get together and somebody bring this and somebody bring peas and somebody's turn to bring meat. And we just all bring a portion of the meal and we have Old Neg, for Old Neg. I said, well, that's really smart. That is really smart. Half time I don't get to eat. Like, that's really smart. Unless she makes pound cake, and then I will stop whatever I'm doing to get some. Because that's my favorite. Okay. Challenge yourself to save. Make a fun challenge. Plan in your budget to go out with the family for dinner. and then make it really fun and interesting and not go to dinner. Take that $50, $60, $70, whatever it is, and put it in savings, something clear that you can see so your family can get motivated and positively to see that you guys are saving. Don't always put in a bank account. Kids have no relation to bank accounts unless they're spending the money and want to know how much more they got to spend. But get something clear, visual that kids can see. They get really excited. I know mine do. They get really excited about putting the money in, and I got a couple of savers in the house, and then I got one big spender. Remember I told you the person that got paid on the 1st and then on the 7th, all their money was gone? That was one of my children. That was my 10-year-old, 9-year-old, sorry. I said, where did it go? Because we're teaching them to be responsible, so we give them money once a month and help them go through the process so they can learn how to tithe, how to give, and do all that. I said, where did it go? He said, well, I saw something I want. When did you see it? Today. And who let you buy it? I make them think about it. See how bad you want it. Because the kids will want and get most of the time whatever they want when they're using your money. When it's their money, they're going to think a little hard about that, especially teenagers. They're going to think a little hard. $60 is no problem to get a pair of tennis shoes if you're buying them. But if I got to buy it, if I make him buy the tennis shoes, he want to go to Walmart and get the $12.99 pair. But my money, he want to go to the foot, whatever the place is, Foot Locker, whatever the name brand store is, and get shoes with my money. Anyway, I done went over a whole 2 minutes. Am I all right, Attorney Sheridan? I'm all right? All right, I got a couple more. This is a good one. Pack a lunch and take it to work. Pack, please, look. Y'all need to pack y'all lunch and take it to work. Y'all ain't got no $7 every day to go to Starbucks for the coffee and then $10 for lunch. Y'all ain't got that. You ain't got that kind of money. And I know you say I'm saving time because my time is valuable. I'm saving time. I understand that. Pack your lunch. Get up early, pack your lunch. I work 15 hours. Okay, get up early before the 15 hours and pack your lunch. Plan your life better with your 12 jobs and pack your lunch. You spend too much money. You waste money just not packing your lunch. And y'all think that's something. I've seen people go through the McDonald's line when I'm getting soggy fries. I've seen it my own eyes. One person get $15 worth of food, sit in the parking lot and eat it. I'm thinking it's a whole family meal or something. Pack your lunch. Last but not least, and I got a bunch. Last but not least, I want to talk about, give you another way that you can use one of your 12 jobs. Whatever your hobby is, if you have time with your 12 jobs to actually have a hobby, make sure your hobby is something that can produce an income. I can't be wasting time playing video games unless my name is Grayson and I can make money doing it. I don't play video games because I'm not being productive with my time. I'm wasting time. I don't look at the Hulu and the Netflix and all of them. I don't even got them. I do got Hobo Max for something my wife like to watch, or Netflix for something somebody else like to watch. And guess what? They pay for it out of their money. I don't pay for Hulu, Boo, and all the rest of them. I don't do it. I do pay for Audible that I need to turn off a little bit. That's $20 a month. And I'm not stingy. I'm not greedy. I just want to stop wasting. I hate to waste. I hate to see the trash bag full of fruits and vegetables and all this food that never got eaten. If Passover then came and y'all ain't got all the leaven out and y'all throwing away stuff, somebody didn't plan right or somebody bought too much stuff. I don't know what happened. But we need to do better. We can do better. But you can't know where you're wasting if you don't know where. You can't really manage or tell how much you're wasting if you didn't have a plan. So you want to make sure you're tracking your spending, have a budget. If you don't have those things, I can help you with those things. Watch the teachings on YouTube. The information is out there. I tell people all the time, I can take you to information, but I can't make you think. You got to think about your situation. The information is here. We're available. Call us. Don't wait till it's too late. I'll hug you and smack you at the same time. I just give you a squeeze. Y'all see how I squeeze people? I saw this really neat technique, or a friend of mine that would give people hugs, and at the same time when he's hugging them, he's patting them down. Like, well, goodness great, boy, you was a bad mama jamma. You just, and he's watching. He know what I'm talking about. I mean, he will give you a hug, embrace you as a brother. While he embraced you as a brother, he done patted you down, make sure you ain't got no weapon. It's like, God, y'all don't know how blessed we are. But anyway, I'm here all the time. Me and Rabbi available, Rabbi Tom, we available all the time. I don't think there's anything that we haven't heard or anything that we can't at least point you in the right direction if we can't do it. But we want you to be successful. All of us have the opportunity to be successful. The issue is, are we taking advantage of those opportunities? We need to stop wasting, figure out where we're wasting, plug those holes, get rid of some stuff, and we'll be better than we were when we started. Amen? Amen. All right, I'm going to bring up our attorney friend, Mr. Randolph Sheridan. He's going to talk to us about end-of-life planning. Yep, you can give him a hand. Yes. Yes.
People online want to know, is there a way they can get the saving sheet? Is it going to be available online?
Tell them just email admin@m2i.org. You can come on up, Mr. Sheridan, and we can send it to him. Tell them just request it, and I can send it to him. For all of you that are here, I'm going to put on the back table, I'm going to put a savings sheet, an insurance sheet, and a major component sheet for your income. So you can just look at them, fill them out if they're useful. If you need other information, you can call us, you can email us. We'll help you get to where you need to get to, okay? All right. Introducing Attorney Sheridan Randolph.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a privilege to get to speak to you, and I hope to speak with some of you after. I'll be at a table in the back. I've provided a PowerPoint presentation. Is that first slide? So again, my name is Sheridan Randolph. I'm an attorney here in Cleveland, Tennessee. I've also worked some in New York and D.C. I'm going to be mostly standing here, so a stand would be good. All right. All right. Good for me, yeah. Okay. So when you're thinking about end-of-life issues, there are several tools that are available to you and several considerations when you're deciding which tools to use and how. If we could go to the next slide. So I'm going to do my best. I can hear it going in and out. Yeah. Okay. So one of the tools we have available in managing our affairs is a power of attorney. And the time to start thinking of a power of attorney is before you need one. They're used in several ways. They're very powerful tools, and you have to be very careful who you entrust to have that authority. The first type of power of attorney that people think of and should consider is a healthcare power of attorney. This can be a separate document from an advanced care directive. So advanced care directives have to do with how you might be spending your last days, whether you're accepting treatment, palliative care, these sorts of things. When these issues come up, it can be give a lot of peace of mind to your family that you've made these decisions in advance. They know what your wishes are, the doctors know what your wishes are, and your family is able to honor these wishes. Outside of those issues, there's also a healthcare power of attorney that would allow someone to make healthcare decisions for you at times when you're not able to make those decisions yourself. And there are a few different kinds of these. Some are in effect now, as soon as you sign it and execute it. Sometimes it's appropriate to wait to have that power of attorney come into effect until you need it. And the difference is, for the latter, a springing power of attorney, you would need someone, a doctor usually, to say that, okay, the person is not able, I'm not able to make decisions for myself, the doctor says, so now it's an appropriate time for you to step in, if you're the attorney, in fact, the agent, to make those decisions. Moving on to financial powers of attorney, there may be times when you need someone to help with a real estate transaction. We've done several of these, and you're not available to sign because you're out of town, or it's expeditious to have someone local sign something. So that can be a limited power of attorney for a specific purpose, and once that purpose is fulfilled, that power of attorney goes away. There's another kind of power of attorney which would stay in effect when you're no longer able to make those decisions for yourself, to enter contracts, to handle banking transactions, and so on. And it can be as broad as, almost as broad as you can imagine for the types of transactions that that would deal with. So for instance, if you wanted to make changes to a trust, a durable power of attorney could allow an agent to do that. It could allow that agent to fund the trust, to move property into a trust. If we could go to the next slide. There are times when we need someone to have that authority, but there's no power of attorney in effect. And the legal avenue for that is to create a conservatorship. I have had cases where there have been people, I'm thinking of one from not too long ago. A gentleman in his 50s had a massive stroke and could not respond. He was non-responsive, but he was still alive, and someone had to take care of him, and it was a difficult situation for the nursing home because there was nobody they could turn to ask questions or to help make those sorts of decisions. It was also important because at 55 he was a beneficiary of an estate, but he couldn't make any decisions and couldn't receive the funds and so on. So we were able to, with the help, there were several lawyers. It takes at least 2 lawyers to get a conservatorship to court and finalized. And there were no funds available, so it was an instance where some lawyers were able to come together and establish a conservatorship for his daughter at no cost to her. I guess the point there is, whatever situation, it's usually better to seek out advice because there's probably a way to get the results you need. But it probably also would have been better if they'd set up a power of attorney in advance, just to have it at the ready if they ever needed it. Moving to the next slide. Okay, so when you're thinking about estate planning, and hopefully you've got the 3 to 6 months living put away, but when you do, you need to think of the assets you may have, and when you're thinking of how to dispose of these assets or what you might want to have happen to them after you pass, you have to think in categories: personal property, real property, and a newer category is digital assets. For digital assets, there is case law. There are laws on the books to handle these things, but if something happened, who would have access to your social media accounts, if you have them, and who would ensure that they're handled appropriately, not hacked after nobody's watching them, and so forth. So another thing I wanted to mention: estate planning these days is it turns more on family relationships or charitable giving, or what you want to have happen with certain property. Taxes have not been an issue. Certainly in the state of Tennessee, the inheritance tax was abolished in 2016 for estates happening 2016 and later. There can be issues that arise in trusts if you use a trust as an estate planning tool, but for the most part, taxes are not the issue that they were. I want to take a moment to talk about what happens if there is no will, if you don't have a will. So when a person in Tennessee dies without a will, and other states have similar provisions, but in Tennessee, there are laws that say what will happen to the property. More or less, it will pass by laws of intestate succession to the children, and if they're not available, no longer living, it would pass to their children. If there are no children, it may go to a sibling. There are rules for how all of that has happened. I have handled an estate early in my career where there were no less than 50 heirs, 50 heirs, and we spent a good deal of time and resources trying to find each of them so they could receive their portion of the real estate. Many of those people didn't know the decedent, the person who had died, at all. So it was a burden on the estate and on the closer family to not have a will in that case. I put another bullet point there for situations. This is something that unfortunately we've seen more of in the last few years in Tennessee with addiction, children where there may have been moral issues or ethical issues. I had a father that came to me and wanted to put his money, had significant holdings, into a trust because he was afraid that if his child were to inherit all at once, it might lead to a bad situation involving addiction. I won't spell it out, but it was a real concern. There's a happy ending to that story, that that problem was addressed, and maybe now is not the problem that it was, but all the same, there was a way through trusts and setting up a will to address that. The final point there is stability, and this, again, just has to do with when there is a plan, and in my experience, when someone comes in and wants to do an estate plan, they know better than I could ever know, better than the laws of intestate succession could prescribe. They know who should get what, how people will get along, and who should be put in charge of managing and wrapping up the affairs. If we could go to the next slide. So, I've mentioned trusts. There are many types of trusts. I've given a few ideas here. Inter vivos or inter vivos trust is one that you make while you're alive. They can be revocable trusts. There are also irrevocable trusts. Tennessee, in particular, has very strong trust laws. If you make an irrevocable trust, to bring up the tax issue again, you could, so if you make a revocable trust, you can put assets in, you can fund the trust. You could also take them out of the trust. Irrevocable, as the name suggests, once it's in, it's in. Once it's set, it's done. You've given up control. And that's an important distinction. It has to do with asset protection, but it also has tax planning implications. When it's an irrevocable trust, you lose, it's entered at the basis for real property that you purchased the property at. With an inter vivos trust that is revocable, if that trust converts to, I know I'm using several terms here, but if you have that trust set up, you can be the beneficiary of that trust in your lifetime, have control of the assets of that trust, and then on your death, the assets in the trust would stay in the trust and they would get a stepped-up basis, so that if that property were sold for the benefit of whoever you wanted to have the property, if it were sold, they would get the benefit of that stepped-up basis and save on taxes. Also, for anyone who has business interests, I recently settled a case. We were confident in our position in the case, but nonetheless, someone had brought a claim against an LLC, and their thinking was that the LLC, it was a single-member LLC, that they could potentially pierce the corporate veil. I don't think that was likely, but they were approaching it that way, and go after the owner's personal assets. And there are, in Tennessee, self-settled asset protection trusts that still gave that business owner a lot of control of his assets, but put them well out of reach of any claims. Okay, next slide, please. Many times when people are considering estate planning, they want to know how to avoid probate, and that's a fair question because probate can be expensive and time-consuming. I think the quickest an estate can reasonably opened and settled and closed in Tennessee is about 6 months. There are provisions for estates under $50,000 that can be handled a little more quickly than that, but in general, that's the fastest it can go, and there are expenses that go along with that. The function of probate is to pay any lawful claims, distribute any assets that need to be distributed, and convey titles if any assets have titles. If there are no assets because they're, for instance, held in a trust, then there's nothing to probate, and you can save that expense. There was a bullet point on a previous slide, testamentary trust. I didn't address it there, but it would come into place in estate, in terms of probate. I'll save that for a future slide, but just so you know it's out there, you don't have to create a trust and fund it today, but you could have that intent and could create that by a will later on. So trust can be very useful for not only asset protection, but also for directing how you would like the money or assets to be used. And if you understand your purposes and what you're trying to do and what you want to leave behind, that is a very useful tool. If we could go to the next slide. Okay, I've already addressed what administration of probate estates entails, and I've talked about purposes in trusts. Wills can be the same sort of thing. You have the opportunity to say, I want this particular keepsake to go to my nephew, this particular keepsake to go, and you can make specific bequests. You can also tie up any loose ends. If you have everything situated, and this should be recommended, any bank accounts can be settled with pay-on-death beneficiaries. There are financial instruments that can keep assets out of probate. Then a will still can be useful to clean up anything that's left over. It can help convey vehicles if you have those. And it can direct that anything that is not in a trust, if there is one, will be put into that trust. So when you're administering a will, the first question, just like the first question when you're setting up your estate plan, what assets are part of the probate estate? And then you do have to see what claims that the decedent may have had. It's another reason to keep your debts under control and plan ahead. Next slide, please. So generally, life insurance is not part of a probate estate. Often, bank accounts can be handled with pay-on-death beneficiaries, and then real property can pass by operation of law if it's not mentioned in a will. But that leads you to the situation I described earlier where we were tracking down 50 heirs all over the country. Property can be handled if you know what you have now. You could do specific bequests, but what is more common is these sorts of things change throughout your life. You can have a general term that says real property to be divided so many ways. And then finally we get back to trusts again. Testamentary trusts. I recently set up a testamentary trust for a couple that had 2 grown children and 1 younger child, and they just wanted to make sure she could live in the family home until she had time to finish college and have a place to go until she reached that age, at which time the house could be sold and the proceeds distributed among their 3 children. So there are often useful cases to use testamentary trust for things like that. You keep control of the asset in your lifetime without the formality of a trust and no need for a trustee, but to fulfill that specific need, as long as those conditions exist, you can set up a trust with the will. A will is something that you can grow with, is something you can set up today and modify from time to time as your conditions change, as the laws change. It is important to keep it up to date. I've had wills go through probate that were 40 years old. We've had to track down witnesses from back then to make the will valid. And that leads me to my next point about wills. If you have, first of all, many of us have seen wills that you can get from the internet. Some of them are very good, some of them are not so good. The biggest trouble that I see with these wills is they're not executed correctly, so they're not valid. If they're not executed correctly, they're not valid. I have a case now that may turn into a conflict with family. It was clearly a will that someone had made for themselves, probably based on something they had seen online, and some crucial words were missing. This is not to scare you from using those wills, but if you're going to edit a will, you may want to have someone look at it before you finalize it. It appears to give the real property entirely to one person, but it left out the words that would make it clear that's what's supposed to happen. I think we can see what the intent was, but the words aren't there, and that gives, if somebody's unhappy with that arrangement, it gives them grounds to come in and take it to court. Will contests are very difficult cases, and they can be very ugly cases. All right, next slide will be the last slide. Okay, I just wanted to take a moment. Charitable giving is important to many of us. There are ways using all the tools that I've mentioned today to incorporate that if that's what you desire. Of course, I have clients who seek this, and then I have others that aren't interested in that. That's fine. But if you are, you can create powers of attorney that are durable, that would allow sustained giving, if that's important to you, to charity of your choice. You can have the same document funding trusts, and there's a lot of flexibility. Again, these come with cautions. You really have to know the person you're trusting to carry these out, these wishes out, but it can be done there. And wills certainly can make specific bequests. And finally, trusts can do all of these things and more. I have had one court case where there was a significant assets, about 8 figures at stake, and we were able, there was a trust in place, there was a power of attorney in place, and then some people came in and said that it should be managed differently, very problematic, and established a conservatorship. So everything I talked about rolled into one case. In that instance, the judge did cut out there were donations made to a school, the person's alma mater. Those stopped, but the charitable giving continued. So once again, it's just good to have whatever your intent is, whatever you think it might like to be, work through those issues, figure out what your assets are, and then put them to work the way you'd like to, and put it in writing and timely so that those that come after you know your intent and can follow it. And that concludes my talk. I'll be happy to speak with anyone afterwards. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you, Mr. Sheridan. That was awesome. Great information. And yeah, you can clap for him. One thing that happens pretty often here, and I just want to mention it as he said at the end with charitable giving, we have oftentimes when we're dealing with end-of-life planning, we have people that want to leave the ministry something, or they want the ministry to handle something on their behalf, and they don't have those things in place. And those kinds of situations can be, especially when the person is still living, can be very challenging to want the ministry to have a certain this or a certain that. And then because it wasn't written down or wasn't clear, or they didn't have a power of attorney in place when they can't make the decisions, even though it was written out somewhere else, to actually give the ministry or give a person in the family a certain whatever. So it's very important what he shared, and that's why we have him here to be able to talk to anyone that has questions about estates and plans, estate planning and wills, because we see it all too often happen, and it's very sad. Once you do, if you're part of our local congregation, we have several people that ask us to secure or ask us to be on the planning of their end-of-life plans, somewhere in the plans, either as the person that helps make sure at least somebody has a copy of that will, and we do that as well. But I can't say it enough. I can't say it enough. I think this past year, well, last year we had about 3 cases of end-of-life planning situations that popped up for someone related to the congregation, a family member or someone in our congregation that didn't go the way we all had wanted it to, and definitely not the person that was involved would have wanted it to go, because they didn't have the right things in place. I'm sure all of my insurance people in the room could agree that one thing that I see all too often happen a lot is this dream home that the family has purchased, or this dream property the family has purchased, and not have insurance coverage or wills or things in place or trust, and they lose it. They lose it. They lose the property, or they lose the land, or whatever it is. So make sure you protect yourself. I can't protect your stuff, protect your legacy. The last thing you want is to leave something behind and it gets tied up in court. And they like to take a lot. But he said the estate taxes are no longer valid in Tennessee? Right, okay. Just state tax in Tennessee. See, I love Tennessee. This is wonderful. All right, so once you get, as he mentioned, I like the fact that he mentioned that, once you get your 3 to 6 months, get that your savings done, you want to be looking at insurances. You want to be looking at your wills and your trust. I mean, I don't know, and you can talk to him, I don't know how effective it would be to write something out, to have something in writing. I don't know how much that helps now while you're working on that 3 to 6 months, but I know people that never live to see 3 to 6 months. And when we talk about disciplining and wasting time, the thing that I see the most is the fact that the sad reality is none of us know how much time we have. We don't know. And because we're not thinking about it, our rabbi says we're not motivated by mortality, we seem to forget that life is not promised to any of us. We don't know. And so if we're not planning, we're wasting. My wife said something to me many years ago. She says, if you're not working on your marriage, you're working on your divorce. Your life is not something that you can put on autopilot and just let it go whichever way the wind blows it. It's something that you have to take control, grab a hold of it. You have to guard and protect it, and you have to walk it out. And we want to do it in a lot of areas in our life, but we struggle when it comes to our finances doing those things. You have to do the same thing. You got to study. You got to know what's available. You got to walk it out. You got to put it in place. Just talking about it isn't good enough. Believing you can be financially free isn't good enough. You have to do something. Believing things are going to be okay when you pass away isn't good enough. Because most of what I see is people leave behind a whole heap of stuff that never gets settled, and somebody loses out. So make sure you take advantage of whatever and do whatever you need to do to make sure when you go that somebody has some directives and be able to help when the process moves forward. One thing I see oftentimes in the black community, and yes, I am black if you didn't know, is that we fail to plan, especially in the black community. We fail to plan, and we're making chicken dinners. I used to hate it as a kid growing up, seeing all the things that family members did in the church to raise money for a loved one that had passed away because they couldn't afford it. In this day and age, I see a lot of them, unfortunately, cremating somebody who asked not to be cremated because they just couldn't afford the funeral, and that's a sad thing. And so we need to be on it and helping each other to grow. That saying I mentioned the other day, it takes a village, it takes a community for all of us to get it. It's not good enough for one of us or two of us or three of us to make it. It's up to all of us to share as much as we can share to those that would receive it, that the whosoevers would take that information and run with it and do something. We all got stories. We all come from some place, but if we want to get to the same place that we all intend to get to, we got to stop wasting. One of the biggest areas we waste in is our time. Amen? All right. I heard there were some questions. Are there still questions online? Just the one. Okay. Does anybody have questions for me? If you have questions for Attorney Sheridan, you can go talk to him in the back of the room. And you can do it now, and if you need to, it's perfectly okay. Anybody have any questions for me in reference to situations in your life you might need some guidance on besides saving? You do? Oh, there's Sam. Sure, come on up, Sam.
Thank you. Shalom.
Shalom.
So I get paid flat rate at work. I work on cars. So how do you budget when you're like a good week versus a bad week? Bad week's like 50% of the good week. So is there a way that you can easily budget for that? Or
Yeah, you got what I call it, I would use an irregular budget. So you'll have averages. So you take law of averages, you're going to take your lowest average, or your lowest paying week. And if you got paid that same wage for a month, you would know if you needed to make more or not. And you could adjust that way. So you only adjust your averages based on the least amount that you bring in. And then on the good months, if we base our budget on the least amount, on the good months when you got more that you can put in other areas. But we got to see where it fluctuates. And you will only know that by tracking your spending and seeing how your income comes in. But just like your business, just like your job, it's the same for business owners. I tell business owners the same thing. The business world, just like a lot of personal people and their personal finances, they rely so heavily on credit, and some businesses have to, loans and so on and so forth, but you have to budget it because you're going to have some weeks you make money and some weeks you don't. That's where that savings comes into play. A lot of the balancing act in people's budgets when they have an irregular income can be settled if you have that cushion, that 3 to 6 month cushion, because you know within the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to get the bigger paycheck. Just like I tell people, which I think is pretty cool, people that get paid bi-weekly, they're always surprised when they get those 2 months a year when they get the whole extra paycheck. And they say, oh my gosh, I got an extra paycheck. No, I set it up that way. But the fact that you think you're surprised because you got the extra paycheck is the fact, it just shows me that you're missing something in our planning and our budgeting. It's not an extra paycheck. If you got $65,000 a year or whatever your salary is, and you're used to getting a certain amount of money every 2 weeks, you're going to have 2 months a year that, because you get paid 26 times if you're biweekly, so you're going to have 2 months on a year that you're going to get an additional, the rest. I hate saying extra. People say, I got extra money. There's no extra. The only extra we have is a second tithe. If you got extra, I mean, there's a lot that can be done with the extra, because if you have extra, that means it's not assigned to something. All your money that comes in and goes out should be assigned to something. Anybody else has a question? Any question? Okay, you got one online? And then Sean has one?
From Mozzie Hill, says, Elder Billy, what should people who are on disability do to be able to save? Does everything that you spoke about earlier apply to those people on disability as well?
Well, I would normally say no. So the thing that applies to disability is if you can't do anything, you can't do anything. I know, fortunately, I won't say unfortunately, fortunately, I know so many people on disability that are doing amazing things with crafts and writing and books and poems and all kinds of things that they're doing on the side to increase their income. So it's really depending on what you want to do. You got a target that you're shooting for, and you don't know how to get there, call us, make an appointment. Part of what I do is help you develop a strategy to get to the target that you're trying to reach. You may not like it all the time, but as long as you get to the desired end, that's what we're shooting for. So you can call and make an appointment about your certain situation, but look, as long as you got breath in your lungs, there's nothing you can't do. So if you want it, we can figure out a way for you to get it, if you're able. And if you're not, you don't have to worry about it. Some people physically can't do anything with their disabilities. So, but that's good. That's a good question. I know it's funny, sadly, but some of the biggest givers that we have come from people on limited income, disabilities, retirement, so on and so forth, and they just give. And you better not argue with them when they say they're giving a tithe off of unearned income, because they're going to fuss with you. I'm giving a tithe. I say, okay, well, you give 10%. It's an offering. You didn't earn it. It's a benefit. It's my tithe. And they give more than people that work, 50 hours or 60 hours a week. All right, Sean?
Okay, so what would be your suggestion for projected income when the income is very sporadic? Like very sporadic. Like just in my case, I haven't had a job in 3 years, but I mean job as in hourly job. But I've had income, and then I sold the asset that had that income, and then right now I'm just rethinking various income strategies on what I'm going to do forward. You see what I'm saying? But like, say in the next 3 months or 6 months, my income could be almost anything.
Well, hopefully anything is more than nothing. So, but anything could be anything. So if you have the opportunity now to wait 3 to 6 months where you don't have to get a job, that you can live off of whatever you're bringing in, then you have 3 to 6 months to plan out what your steps are. So that's not money that's money you can live on, but it's not really money, depending on the size of it, that we should really be looking at. You should take this opportunity that's almost like your 3 to 6 month savings. So when you have that 3 to 6 months, that gives you however many 3 to 6 months to figure out the next step you need to make. Some people only have 30 days to make that decision. In your case, you got 3 to 6 months of this projected income. Hopefully you have it, and it's not just projected that you could have it, but if it's unlimited and you have enough to live on, you should be looking at the next steps, as you said you already are, and what strategies you can use to create additional income streams. So the 12 jobs is 12 income streams. There may be, 3 jobs and 2 hobbies. maybe Instacart, DoorDash, and then you work 40, 50 hours. Do what you need to do to make what you need to make. Good question. Justin.
So I have a question in the fact that would it be good to come and probably counsel if we have, say, we have an idea or a vision or a dream, but we're not quite sure where to start that, as even in a business plan of what to do, how to start something in that case? Because there's some things here in Cleveland that are lacking, and if you have the idea and the thought, sometimes you don't know where to start, how to implement that. Is that somewhere that we can seek help with you guys from?
You can, and a lot of people do, and we usually put reality, always bring reality into the picture when it's a person that's making a transition from an employee to a business owner. We want to look at everything. I mean, I've counseled many people in our congregation. If you can't manage your finances, you should never be looking at starting a business, because you need the concepts that we teach. You need that to be in place, that discipline in place before you ever start a business. Rabbi has this phrase, if you start a business and you're not prepared, it will eat your lunch. I love it when he says that. It will eat your lunch. And then he'll follow up and says, and if you're really not committed, guess what? It'll eat you too. If you struggle with 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, a business is going to take everything that you have. Every available hour you have. If you think you have marriage problems now with the 40 hours a week you're doing, you better make sure you get that straight before you start a business, because that's going to take 1,000,000 hours. You may not sleep, depending on what your commitment is. So we go through all those scenarios in a very reality-driven way when somebody wants to start a business, and we want to make sure before you start a business, is your home straight? Is your home right? Because I'm going to look at every aspect of your life. Is your home right? Is your marriage right? Is your finances right? Are you saving? Because I don't want you going out. I counsel. I'm very proud of Ben. With Ben back there. Very proud of Ben. When he graduated our academy, he came to me and said, "Hey, I want to go to college, and I want to do it the right way." And he didn't want to have debt and get student loans. I said, "Great. Take in-state tuition, pay your way through. Don't get the student loan." And good thing he didn't. I'm so proud of him. And he did go to college, and he's going back to get some certificates, take some courses and things of that sort to get what he wants to get, because he'd have got student loans if he'd have went that route and didn't listen and racked up a bunch of debt and not even like what he was getting a student loan for. So good job, Ben. Great example. Thomas Rob.
Hello. Oh, from
Hello.
Tom Lasardo says, Elder Billy, should I think about setting up a budget when the time comes for when I retire and have to live on Social Security?
Absolutely. As long as you're breathing and bringing in money, you need to have a budget. And your Social Security might be higher or lower than your actual income that you're bringing in now. And usually it isn't, but I've talked to several people who are actually making more money in retirement than they did when they were working. And they're so cute. There's always those people. And they call and they say, "Look, do I have to tithe on retirement benefit?" And depending on what kind of retirement it is, it may be tithable, may not be. But yeah, I know some people that are bringing in some huge retirement checks that are bigger than their actual income. So if you got income coming in the house, it needs to be budgeted. Guess what? I got people that are debt-free that I work with. It still needs to be budgeted. You have monthly bills. You have monthly income that are coming in. You just paid off all your debt, but you still got money coming in and money going out. So long as that's happening and you're still breathing, every dollar should have an assignment. Every penny should be accounted for. Anybody else? Just so you guys know, me and Rabbi laugh about it all the time. I don't like debt. I don't like debt from the standpoint that debt will come and steal everything that you've worked so hard to get if you don't manage it properly. So I would prefer you to not get in debt and manage it and get rid of it than I would you to go and rack up a bunch of stuff that you could, life comes along and you're not prepared, and it, as he says, eat your lunch or eat you too. So if you come to me and you talk about a business idea, what I see in the body a lot around the world in our ministry, and you can see it everywhere, it's in the world as well, that people have these great ideas, but they don't have the skill set to make the dream or the vision come to reality. And in the world, I had a marketing, very good at selling things. I love to sell. It's something I'm very passionate about. And people would come to me and they create a business and they had a good idea, a great skill, but they had no sales ability. They had no strategy to get the product from their table to the market and to be able to market it properly. And then they would ask me, hey, can you come and look at this product or look at this thing and tell me if it's a good idea? It's a great idea, but you don't have what it takes to get it to the market. In order to pay somebody to get it done, it's costs some money. And so we got a lot of people in the body with a lot of great ideas, but don't have all the pieces. So I think at some point we could talk about putting those, put a think tank together to figure out what pieces you have versus what somebody else has and how that could benefit and work together. But before you talk about business, you got to get your house straight. Or else you'll be like so many people that take their house savings to try to fund their business and they screw it all up. If you think you need 3 to 6 months for your house if something goes wrong, how much you think you need for your business if it goes wrong? 3 to 6 years. That's not a bad idea. I know business people that business closes up. The average business open and closes 3 to 5 years. That's average business. And you might have something really good going. Look, if you want to try it, some people think their businesses are hobbies, and some people think their hobbies, well, they can actually turn a hobby into business. But one thing that Rabbi says that I've heard him say over and over again, until your hobby supersedes your job, you should still be working. But then there's a lot of people who are not disciplined and they sleep on their skills. They have excellent skills, but they're too lazy to do it for themselves. They rather work for somebody else and have somebody else tell them what to do, when really they have the mindset and they have the motivation when they're not being lazy to go and do it for themselves, and they miss out on the world's tons of opportunity. Do you know the definition of entrepreneur is not being afraid to take risk? That's what it means. 98% of the world are not entrepreneurs. Only 2% of the world is. And the 98% work for the 2%. Because the 2% are not afraid to take risk. Those are the wealthiest of the world. The 98% are settled and secured and working for somebody else. I'm not saying you can't. I mean, everybody is not a business owner. There are more employees than business owners. But there are a lot of business owners that won't step up because they're afraid. They're not disciplined. They don't have the right accountability partner to make it come to fruition, to bring it to the market. So my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter, she has amazing ideas, and I push her every idea she has. She has so many of them. But she's like me. She can think of a million things and how to get it done, and she'll have her plans. She'll be in the computer making flyers and everything and trying to get it to narrow down on one. Look, get the one, let's focus on the one, and then go to the next one. Right, Miss Norma? She's a great business mind. Start on one, focus on one, get to the next one. Knock that out, get to the next one. If you're too scattered on too many things and haven't nailed down exactly what it is you want to do, you're going to be one of the 3 to 5 that fail. You can be good, but if you can't sell, depending on what business is. Where's my friend? Oh, he's back there, Jeremy. Jeremy, we talk a couple times a year, but he does good with trading, and I told him that he comes and gets some financial coaching, he can show me how to do the stocks and stuff that he does. I send my money. I have a financial advisor I go to, but he's been really successful doing it himself. So we got a little trade-off. So you might want to find somebody that has a piece that you need, and they have a piece, use that bartering thing. Just talk to a bunch of people. You never know what they can do. Amen? Amen. Stop wasting. I know half of you feel like you wasted. No, you didn't waste your time being here. You needed to hear something that you were here for. Rabbi's coming with Up to the Challenge soon. Oh, Miss Michelle has a question. Can somebody take it a mic? She's going to yell from here. No, let's get you the mic so the people online can hear you.
So I've been following what you and I have been talking about, my finance situation and disability and stuff. And I got to say, I went from $1,500 in debt last year under $900.
Amen. That's great. That's great. That's great. That's awesome. You know, if you can save $1, you know, I put plans on our Facebook group. But if you can save $1, you know, we just don't think about it, I think, in the right way. If you thought about when you got your paycheck, the first thing you would do after you tithe was to save, you'll be in a different mindset that after you tithe, if you tithe, to spend. I tell my family, saving comes first. Comes before your bills. All right, I got a question.
Yes, sir. I just want to say that I am so humbled in being here. Currently, I am a single mother, and I am currently building my career in where I am employed, and Abba has opened doors left to right over there. I'm very, very honored to have him in my life. Not only was I coming here to get freedom, I feel, from an abusive relationship that I had been in several years, but also to gain wisdom in the way that you guys teach, which is absolutely life-changing in our lives. The whole entire finance situation, I feel, as a child, it has become an addiction and a mindset of where we grew up at. From generation to generation, it has led that way. And instead of being a blessing, it has been a cursing. And not only did we get filled with Abba's word and so much knowledge in that area, but to be blessed with the words that you're giving and not holding that in. I've met several people that don't like to share knowledge about saving and having that life-changing skill to break these generational curses. I'm very blessed that you said everything that you said, whether it was bold or not. I do have a question, because I am, after today, mindset, I'm willing to listen to all your teachings, everything that you have, the principles that you have taught today, so that I can, for my baby, she's 5 years old, I feel like I still have a lot of time to be able to do that. I want wisdom on the tithes. So you said that there's a first tithe, a second tithe, and a third tithe. Do you mind explaining that to me so that I know to get that first?
Sure. So, and I'm not going to, I'll give you an overview. There is a teaching on our YouTube page called Tithing. I think it's a 3-part teaching. Is it 3 parts or 2 parts? 3 parts. Okay. So I'm sure it goes over the first tithe, the second tithe, and the third tithe. There are those teachings, Rabbi break down the point and purpose and the scriptural references to all 3 tithes. But to briefly go over it, the first tithe is your first 10% goes to wherever you're fed. So if it's here, you would send it in. Your second tithe would go to you enjoying the feast. So once you start putting away that second tithe, every time you get paid, you're going to start off by saving 20%, and the 10% you send here, the other 10% for the 20% you would keep to save up to enjoy the feast. So when you come, you can enjoy it without that being a burden financially on you, and Abba commands it, and it's in those teachings. The third tithe is every 3rd and 6th year, and that's for benevolence. You would also send that here. And you don't have to send it here. We encourage people to send it here because there is a lot of need around the world within our organization and the body in itself, and then we give it for benevolence. So what we tell people to do is start weaning yourself to live off of 70% and take the 30% off the top every time you get paid. Now, when it's not the 3rd or the 6th year for the third tithe, you would take that extra 10% and you would put it towards your emergency fund or investing or retirement. But if you get in the habit of living off of 70%, and taking the 3 tithes every time you get paid, when your third year hits for the third tithe, it won't throw your budget off because you're already used to paying it. So people ask me all the time, well, I can't afford to do it. Well, then you don't make enough. So you need to earn enough that you can live off the 70. And like I mentioned earlier, with the young people and younger people that I coach, I tell them they get in a mindset of earning or living off of 50% of what you're bringing in, 50% of your paycheck. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, I can't live off 100%. Well, you need to get rid of some stuff because you're probably living above your means. Well, you're definitely living above your means if you can't live off 100%. But those 3 tithing teachings will help you. Rabbi has the money mastery on there as well. And last of coat, you'll see I got 3 teachings talking about saving and all that good stuff too. But you mentioned something that's very important. And I used to ask, because I know a lot of rich people. And I never asked them for anything because they're friends, or acquaintances or whatever. But I asked them, I said, the information that you share, I do have a very wealthy uncle. This is my wife's uncle. It's still my uncle because we're married. But anyway, I asked him, I said, why don't you share that information? And he said, because people don't want the information. He said, they just want the result of the information. His kids, his own children, he said, they don't want to learn how I made the money. They just want the money. So a lot of people don't want, like I said, they don't want to actually do the budget. I can't tell you how many people walk in my office and they walk out upset because they think I'm going to do their budget. No, I'm not doing your budget.
Right.
You're going to do your budget. I'm going to look it over if I need to and help you figure out where you went wrong or where you're bleeding. I'm not doing your budget. And I have people don't come back to talk to me because I give them paperwork. I need you to track your spending for 30 days, write your budget down, then come and talk to me. That is a filter that many people don't get through because they don't want to do the work.
Right. I definitely agree. I think my mindset is hands-on. That's the way that I learn on anything. So that the fact that you provide that, I think that's the way a human mind is able to pick up and take it with them instead of just listening to it and not allowing it to stick. Before I get out of here, I do want to share a testimony because I know that tithing is a command. And now that I know the 3 tithes, I can only imagine what the Father's going to do in my life, seriously. When I started...
Yeah, you can clap. That's awesome.
When I started working, I currently work for Crunch Fitness as a gym. And I started working back in August, and I think it's been about 7 months now. I started off in the daycare. I've always knew about tithing, but for a long time, I was without a job. I was married, a stay-at-home mom and stuff. And when I started my job in August, I started tithing my 10%. And when I started tithing my 10%, I started off in the daycare. Literally, next month, I was elevated to a higher position. The next month after that, a situation had ended up happening with my daughter at the Boys and Girls Club. So me thinking that it was a setback, it honestly wasn't. But to work a shift that literally agreed with her schedule, I became janitorial. So in janitorial, you can imagine, by yourself, you can imagine the obstacles that you come across. It felt like the hardest job that I've had, but being a mother, I love to clean and everything like that. I found good in it because I truly believed in what I was taught by my mother. Anything and everything that you do it as you're doing it for the Father.
Amen.
So even in a janitorial position, oh man, having that was a test, but I was there for 3 months. And after that, I then was open to an opportunity. And mind you, let me not forget, because of the 10% tithe that I believe, I was elevated and raise after raise. So I started off at $9 an hour. Every time I was raised to a different position, there was another dollar raise given to me. Praise Abba for that.
Amen.
And lastly, being in janitorial, a position had opened up after a situation that I was faced with, people turning against me, making me feel like I was just the bottom of the earth because of my hard work ethic and them not understanding I only get paid so much and I'm still going above and beyond. The next day that situation had happened, I was blessed with a manager position inside the daycare, and that was truly a blessing along with another raise. A month after that, I ended up as an MIT, which is like one of the highest manager positions underneath an AGM. So then I got another raise going into that position. And now speaking literally, and this is how the Father works, is that he opened those doors for me. So every time I was raised to a higher position, people were stepping down. So there was room to be filled where I was just literally walking into it. And me thinking like, oh my gosh, this is just going so fast that I could barely even catch my breath. It was all the Father. Did I have to do anything to get there? Yes, I had to work. I had to show my work ethic like if I was working for him. But literally do something. Like I feel like a lot of times in life, for me, I was trying to force things to happen. And in this situation where I started at Crunch, never had to do anything outside of what I was supposed to be doing other than just living everyday life. And tithing, of course. Now I had my GM literally step down, open his own business. So therefore, it's now opened a job for an assistant general manager that's making $50,000 to $70,000 an hour, which I'm now going to transition to when I go back home. So if that's not Abba, like I can honestly say 10% really isn't that much, especially when you're only making $9 an hour. But praise Abba for that diligence to be able to give him that 10% tithe, because if it weren't for that, I truly don't believe that I would be where I am today in my career, where I am heading to. So,
oh man, awesome testimony. Rabbi was teasing because you said 50 to 70,000 an hour. I want that job. We know. We all got excited when you said that. We want you to make 50 to 70,000 an hour. You can tithe more. That is awesome. But yeah, isn't that good? Can you imagine what we could do with a tithe of 50 to 70 an hour? My goodness. I love to hear those stories of lives changing because people are obedient to him. And it's only because we're obedient, not just in that, but in all things. He said, if you're faithful over the little things, then he'll make you master over a lot. And so we need to be faithful in the little things, which is most of the time our pocket and our budget, so he can give us more. How can he give you more if you're not faithful with what he already gave you? If you're not a good steward over what he gave you, why would he give you more? Isn't that right? Amen. All right. Well, here comes Rabbi Stu.
All right. Let's hear for Elder Billy and for our guests and for all the things that we got here in the early ones. All right. So I've got nothing for you, so that's the end of the class. Okay. Okay, you know, what I thought we could do, and we call these up to the challenges, because really we need to be individually up to the challenge of becoming the type of person Yahweh wants to live with forever. Up to the challenge of transforming into the image of Yeshua. Up to the challenge of living in the below while we're aiming at the above. A lot of this is a challenge. And so that's what I want to basically do today. Welcome to group therapy. Okay?